what's going on is you've got a battle between Putin and Zelensky for Trump's ear.
European and Canadian leaders met this morning following President Zelensky's talks with Donald Trump over the weekend, and it comes after Zelensky denied Russian claims that Ukraine launched a drone attack on one of Vladimir Putin's residences. Following the alleged attack, a Kremlin spokesperson said the response will be to toughen the negotiating position of the Russian Federation. Joining me to discuss the latest is Sir Tony Brenton, former British ambassador to Moscow. So, Tony, thanks for joining me. What do we know of what was discussed between European leaders this morning?
Well, I think basically they were getting together with Zelensky to get an update on Zelensky's talks with Trump. And those talks seem to have gone okay. Both sides came out saying how very positive it's all been, but didn't actually mark a lot of progress towards a final agreement. I assume it was intended to be that. This latest accusation has turned up this morning. It's slightly bizarre. It's a big accusation to make, and it obviously got under Trump's skin a bit when Putin said to Trump that this is what the Ukrainians had done. Do I believe it? Half and half. On the one hand, the Russians do make things up. On the other hand, the Ukrainians do launch off-the-wall operations, like, for example, blowing up the Nord Stream 2 oil pipeline, and then deny them fervently afterwards.
So this is supposedly an attack on Putin's residence. I imagine Putin has quite a few residences. I think the one they're talking about is in Novgorod. Is that right?
Well, just outside Novgorod, that's right. There's a place called Valdai. It's a beautiful part of Russia.
Yeah, it's sort of northwest of Russia. That's quite a distance from Ukraine. Is that a possibility for a drone attack there? I don't know what your drone knowledge is.
Ukrainians organised themselves, have launched quite effective drone or missile attacks in unexpected bits of Russia. That's become a little bit of a trademark. You remember when they destroyed some Russian strategic bombers at one point. And they pride themselves on this, and they pride themselves also on the surprise, which it brings to the Russians, who are pretty slow on their feet quite often. So from those points of view, the trademark feels right. On the other hand, launching an attack on a head of government's residence is pointless if he's not going to be there. And as you hinted, Putin has lots of residences and wasn't there. And secondly, if you're a head of government, if, for example, you're Trump, the thought of people blowing up heads of government's residences has a sort of personal implication, which you can understand would cause anger and resentment.
What, is he worrying about drone attacks on Mar-a-Lago, do you think?
I don't think anybody's actually planning to attack Mar-a-Lago, although some people might be tempted.
I mean, he was, joking aside, he was angry about these drone strikes. And how much will this harm Zelensky's attempts at negotiation?
Yeah, no, he was. And there's a sort of unstated accord among all heads of government around the world that they don't try and kill each other.
Yeah.
This, if the Ukrainians actually did it, would have been a breach of that, and thus makes the job of being a head of government that little bit less secure.
How do you think Zelensky's feeling with plans agreed between him and Trump for US security guarantees for 15 years?
I think Zelensky's... What's going on is you've got a battle between Putin and Zelensky for Trump's ear. They're both trying to get Trump on their side as the negotiations go forward. And this 20 points or whatever it is now that Zelensky has been working on with Trump constitutes their latest attempt at it. And there has undoubtedly been convergence between Ukraine and the United States on a sort of deal which might be acceptable to both of them. Doesn't solve the problem because, of course, you need Russia on board as well. Zelensky is very anxious to get the United States firmly on board, whereafter he then gets Trump to begin to apply pressure to Putin to come on board himself, and also gets Trump to apply pressure on Putin to go for a ceasefire, which the Ukrainians are very anxious to get. They're under a lot of pressure. They've got nowhere near as many troops as the Russians have. All of that. A ceasefire would be a very big step forward from the Ukrainian point of view.
Now, the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that peace is on the horizon, which sounds wonderful. But should we have any reason to believe him?
We're closer than we were. If you think back to when Trump arrived, nobody was talking to anybody. We in Europe were flatly refusing to have any communications with the Russians at all. Trump broke that impasse, as it were, broke the ice, got talks going. There are now, as the talks have proceeded, it has become clear clearer where the hard, difficult points are for the two sides. And there are relatively few of them, actually. The two big ones are what sort of security assurances the Americans and the Europeans will give to Ukraine in the event of peace, and the other is the argument about a small chunk of the northern Donbass, which is northeast Ukraine, might be handed over to Russia without the Russians actually conquering it. Now, those are both very hard points, but down from the great massive disagreement which we thought we were dealing with a year ago, there has been a lot of progress. I suspect that we're not that close yet. The 2 points that remain are very hard. For example, the Russians have been absolutely clear that they will not agree to anything which puts NATO troops onto Ukrainian soil. Now, if the European Reassurance Force is to work in the way that people are anticipating, that's exactly European troops on Ukrainian soil. So that's that to be fought out. And on the issue of the bit of the Donbass that Russia is demanding without having actually conquered it, while the Americans have implicitly backed this, the Ukrainians are saying, well, first of all, it's impossible. Why on earth would we give up our territory to an aggressor? And secondly, even if we are to contemplate doing it, we have to have a national referendum to agree to it, which is going to take time, and we want a ceasefire. I've mentioned a ceasefire over that time. So hard to do, I would guess, in the next few weeks. I think the war will go on, but a lot of ground has been cleared, and we could well come back to this perhaps next spring as we get out of the winter when fighting in an advance is very difficult anyway, get back to a point where the Russian army, which is what's been advancing to the extent that anyone has, may be re-engaging in hoping for more advances then.
So interesting, because I mean, people sort of knock Donald Trump and his attack to his approach to geopolitics, but you seem to be hinting there that really he has been quite effective. What do you think his peculiar skill might be?
I have to say, as a professional ex-diplomat, I'm appalled by the way he's approached this.
It's not diplomacy, we know that.
You know, he doesn't prepare things. He goes in, you don't know where he's going to come out. He's very unpredictable. Nevertheless, he has entered all of this with a clear view. He doesn't care about Ukraine, frankly. What he cares about is ending the war and being able to do what he regards as more serious business with Russia. Things like reducing strategic nuclear weapons, agreement to action in the Arctic, hopefully edging Russia out of China's orbit, which is where Russia firmly is at the moment. So the way he's done it, he's made a lot of noise. He does lead the most powerful country in the world, and he's applied pressure. There's a lot of sanctions at the moment operating on Russia. He has, just by being who he is, making the noise, breaking a lot of China, he's got people talking. It's not textbook diplomacy, but it has achieved quite a lot of progress.